and do some type of write-up, like, and just make it free that you can share with people. But like, even for me doing this interview, what would be really cool, like I'm doing this because I have a relationship with your dad. Had I not had the relationship with your dad, I would have needed some benefit in order to do this. I'm not saying I have to have a benefit for everything or have to be paid or anything like that. But what I am suggesting is, if you want to take learning from successful people like this to another level, at some point, you got to have some carrot that you dangle in front of them to incentivize them to want to do this. And something you could do to do that is to say, look, I'm interviewing all these successful people. I want to learn what they know from a kid's perspective now. And when I'm done, I'm going to turn all of this into a write-up and share it back with you guys that you can share with your own audiences. You can share with your own, like, I would love to have this for my own kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to be able to show my son, here's Collin just interviewed these, I don't know, 12 people or whatever, and these are the best nuggets that he's gotten from interviewing all of these people. And this is a kid's perspective of it. Like, that would be awesome if I had something like that. Now, I don't have to have that. Obviously, I'm doing this without any kind of expectation, but that'd be really cool carrot to dangle.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's really good stuff. All right. Well, I'm gonna head out and leave. I got to go to a closing, which is always a good thing. And
that's good, because you may not want to hear some of what I have to tell him about college.
Hey, listen, he's got it. He knows.
Okay, cool.
So, and no holds barred. There is no filter. I've not talked to you beforehand and said, hey, don't, talk to him about this. Don't talking about, this. By the way, he hasn't learned about the birds and the bees yet, so that's on you. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to talk. All right, we'll talk about that during the whole interview then.
Let me put it on recording.
It's already
on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. It's been a long time since I think the last time I ever saw you was in St. Louis at one of those Life and Ear things.
Yeah.
But usually how I start these is I get a basis on how you grew up and what kind of shaped you to be who you are today.
Yep.
Usually that kind of leads up a lot of follow-up questions, and that helps me, kind of get an idea, because looking at Facebook and all the things you've done doesn't give me a good idea on who you are.
Sure.
My first question with you is just going to be, how did you, just growing up, what kind of shaped you to be who you are? What kind of jobs shaped you to be who you are, and what kind of mentors and kind of advice did you get that kind of brought you up to be who you are today?
Great question, man. All right, let me give you a condensed version. So I grew up in a military household where, my father kind of ruled with an iron fist to some degree, and he liked to give instruction, but without reason. Thank you. And so I grew up a little bit rebellious, because when somebody tells me what to do, but I don't understand why, I kind of am now going to be determined to find out why. And usually it's by doing the opposite of what they ask me to do. So that being said, that's not the only recipe needed for an entrepreneur, but a lot of entrepreneurs I have found are willing to break the mold a little bit. And so I went out, got jobs. As a matter of fact, I tried a lot of different jobs. I got made fun of because I tried so many different jobs. If I went somewhere and I enjoyed what I was doing, I stayed for a while. I learned everything I could learn from that job. If I didn't, I very quickly left and tried to find something else that I liked. And that is sort of frowned upon in society today, like, if you're a job hopper at all. But the fact of the matter is, I was finding out what I enjoyed doing. I tried everything from working at a video store, to working at McDonald's, to working at various restaurants, to working at a car dealership, to working for a moving company, to, oh my gosh, all these, working for a pager company, all these different things. And what I was doing during that time was I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And so, just for the sake of this interview, now that I know why you're doing it, that's one thing I would encourage you to do, is to have the guts to go try multiple things. Now, I tried lots of things that I failed at. I got fired from a couple of jobs because I sucked at what I was doing. And all of that I think is okay. And so I through the course of that, eventually you find a couple things and you're like, man, this round or realm of things I really enjoy doing. And so how can I do more of it? And eventually, it may take you a year or 2 years or 20 years, but eventually you find that thing that you wake up in the morning and you go, man, I don't feel like I'm working today. I actually love what I do. And of course, I feel like it should be the goal for everybody. Most people, that's not their goal. But so that's brought us to where we are today. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. I'm not calling out my friend here, but I have a friend kind of like that.
Yeah.
He's been through many jobs. He's been through like 6 or 7, and he's only 17. And I mean, we all make fun of him for it because we say, yeah, he's actually coming to work with me now. But we all make fun of him for it. But I never thought of it that way, where the more information you obtain from different jobs, I guess it's better off for you. I actually have a question about that. So you went into coaching in real estate. What jobs kind of told you that, hey, I don't really I would like to go into coaching in real estate, or was that something else that kind of like geared you toward that career?
Man, I don't know that I never set out to be a real estate coach. I think I will say this. When I was thinking about going to college the first time around, I thought, man, I really enjoy helping other people a lot, and I really enjoy teaching. And I actually did go to college for a whopping 1 semester. I went to a community college here in St. Louis. But the truth of the matter is, like, all through high school, that first semester of college that I went to school, there was pieces of school that I really enjoyed, that I liked to learn about. And there was pieces that I was just like, man, I'm not interested in this. This doesn't pertain to me. I don't see how I can use this in real life. And I was bored. And so because of that, I thought I hated school and I hated learning. And the fact of the matter is, I love learning. I love teaching. I absolutely love a classroom environment where I'm learning a lot of stuff, but it's got to be stuff that I'm interested in. And so on one hand, school prepares you by teaching you a bunch of stuff so you can find out what you're interested in. But on the other hand, college sort of takes you to this other level where now all of a sudden I was required to take certain classes to get to, whatever degree that I was trying to shoot for. And I wasn't interested in those classes. I was like, why can't I just learn about the degree that I want to be? And what I wanted to be at the time was a teacher. And when I started going to college and we started taking all these classes on sociology and some of the really high advanced math classes that I just wasn't interested in, some engineering type classes. I'm not an engineer. I don't care about that type of, it's not that I don't care. It's just, that's not my area of gifting. It's not where my interest is. I was interested in having something of value that I could teach to other people. They didn't teach me that. And then add to that, I found out while I was in college what teachers actually make. They don't make anything. And I got frustrated. And so, being frustrated with school, having to take a bunch of classes I didn't want to take, but I had to in order to become a certified teacher, all of this stuff sort of made me go, all right, I'm not interested in doing this through school. And so having the initial interest in becoming a teacher sort of came out over the years. So I took all these different jobs. I eventually started my own company. And when my company started doing well, now this was maybe 4 years into me having a real estate business, I started getting asked by other people, will you please teach me this? So I had forgotten how much I enjoyed teaching until people came to me and they said, hey, you're having some success now. We want to know what you're doing that's successful. Will you speak? Will you teach? And I started doing that. I was like, man, I love this. Matter of fact, I loved that. I loved the teaching and speaking and sharing what was working even better than what I was doing that was working anymore, which sounds kind of crazy. But I just enjoy seeing people make a difference in their lives. And so I started focusing more and more and more on that. Is that making sense so far? It's a long answer to your quick question, but
yeah,
some of this, man, to be honest with you, is trial and error and having the guts to go try new things. Now, one thing too, with your buddy who just jumps from job to job to job, it's one thing to jump from job to job because you're lazy and you don't like to work, and this job makes you work, and therefore you're quitting to move to a new job. That's one thing. It's another thing to jump from job to job because you're finding yourself. Now, here's the other thing too. Sometimes you have to give yourself enough time to figure out what specifically you don't like about it, right? I mean, every job, for the most part, has some aspect of it that is not going to be your favorite thing on earth, right? Even running my own business, there's accounting. I don't enjoy accounting, but it's a necessary evil of doing business. You got to know your numbers and know where your money's going in and going out and all this stuff. And so I'm not suggesting you have to love every second of every minute of every thing in your business, but some things have to get dealt with. So jumping from job to job, it's got its upsides and its downsides too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of forgot my question that I was going to have, but you were saying trial and error,
Yeah.
and that's something that I always think about, because if I went to college, which I'm debating, and it's kind of hard to get a full, because all my friends are going to be going to college, and
Yep.
I actually am getting out of school a little bit early to go to a community college instead of going to high school for a year.
Yep.
It's just higher up classes, and it's just a little bit easier to get credits. But if I didn't want to go to college, I felt like it'd be easier to go through trial and error faster, like that kind of experience. At 18, maybe just starting or helping with my dad would be better. Do you think that it's better to go through experience at a younger age, like experience learning, or I guess learning through a school?
Man, that's a great question. That's a really good question. I think it depends on what you're going to do. I mean, if you want to be a surgeon, you have to go to school. You're not going to be a surgeon by learning from your dad who's a surgeon, right? You have to go through, you have to get the credentials, and you have to be able to legally become a surgeon so that you're not going to kill people, right? But if you're going to become a business owner, it's interesting to me because some of the people that teach business at colleges have never run an actual freaking business. Here, to give you an idea about this, I hired the marketing, the one of the instructors for marketing at Washington University. This is an Ivy League school, right? I hired one of the professors there to come work for me to do my marketing in my real estate business. And I paid her, I think, $12 an hour to do my marketing. Now, she did that for me on the side. But what's crazy about that is she had no clue about marketing in the real world. Matter of fact, I was teaching her about marketing. And here she is, she teaches marketing. She's a professor at Washington University, but she's teaching out of a book. And so she's teaching what somebody else wrote a book about how Pepsi-Cola markets to the masses. But when it comes to marketing as a small business, she knew nothing about it. Nothing. Matter of fact, some of the principles that I was teaching her in marketing for small business, she was completely blown away by. She's like, they don't teach this. She goes, I don't teach this in my college that I actually teach. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? You know, it's because she's a teacher. She's not a business owner. And so my answer to your question would be it largely depends on what your goal is. And my problem how old are you right now?
I'm only 16 right now.
Okay, 16. So my problem when I was 16 is I would go to these guidance counselors at my school and they would give me this list of professions that I'm supposed to choose from. And I'm supposed to determine the next, 4, 5, 6, 8 years of my college life is supposed to be determined on what job I select on this list of jobs, as if I know anything about the job, as if I've ever set foot in an office doing any of those jobs, or maybe not an office, whatever the job entails. But I'm expected to know this. And then in today's society, now you're expected to go sign up for $200,000-$300,000 worth of student debt to go learn about this job that you have no idea if it's in your skill set or if you're going to enjoy it. That I have a problem with. Because if I would have, and by the way, one of the reasons that I decided to stop going to college after 6 months is because my father paid for the first semester, and after that he said, you're on your own. And so when I was on my own, I was like, well, do I really want to spend money on this thing? I have no idea what I'm going to use it for. I don't know my direction. I'm spending money on a college degree. I have no idea why I need it or what I'm using it for. And now I don't want to be a teacher because it doesn't pay anything. When I had to put my own money up, all of a sudden it was a different story. So, to some degree, people say, well, student loans are this great thing. Go out and get a student loan. Well, to some degree, it's a good thing not to have a student loan because that forces you, if you have to pay for it right now, you all of a sudden, very quickly, you decide whether or not you value it or not. And to me, I decided I don't value it enough to pay for it right now. I wasn't going to work 40 hours a week to put myself through school when I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And so I decided not to go anymore. Does that make sense? So I would say the answer largely depends on who you are. I can give you my own experience, but that's just one experience. If I was going to go and my heart was in it that I really want to be a doctor, you better believe I'd go to school. I'd try to get in the best school I possibly could. commit to every single class I had to take to get there. But that was not my case. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was still exploring, and I thought, I'm not going to go into $200,000 worth of student debt just to go explore. I'm going to explore on my own.
Yeah, so I have this conversation all the time. Most of my my grandma, grandpa, all them, they really want me to go to college, just because they did it, and they said,
Yep.
because I did it, you have to do it. But I'm looking more into it. I seriously don't know what career I would go into if I go to college, because it's just super hard to choose. And plus, I haven't really been accustomed. Like I don't go to public school, so I haven't been like brought up with the ideas that, hey, this is what college you need to go to, and this is what kind of stuff to do. I haven't gone on any college visits, but I've gotten most of my information from just watching people talk about college and why they didn't go to college, and listening to people like you talk about their college experience. Most of the people I've interviewed have not gone. They went to college and they dropped out because they didn't feel like it was necessary, and they became really successful. And so I kind of get what you're saying here is like, if you don't have an idea of what you're trying to do, it's best not to waste $200,000 in student debt. And yeah, that really applies to what I'm kind of thinking right now. I don't really want to go into debt, and I'd really like to learn from other people rather than going to college. Actually, I have a question about you were a national speaker, which I thought was pretty cool, and you spoke for the Rich Dad Poor Dad. Can't remember his name. It's
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, Kiyosaki. I've read that book 2 or 3 times now, and I think it's a really important book. And I just kind of like what was kind of your experience working with him, and what kind of advice did he give to you, and what was it like being a speaker there?
Well, let me paint a little bit different picture than what most people think that looks like. I spoke on the same stage. I spoke for the organization. I never worked for them. They would have me come in as an external outside speaker, and I got to speak for 90 minutes to their audience, and I got to talk about my message, and then I got to sell a product to their audience. And when that works, you end up splitting the revenue that comes in. So if I go sell a $2,000 product in front of the room, let's say we sell 50 of those courses, we got $100,000 in sales. The Rich Dad organization would get 50 grand of that, and I would get 50 grand. We split it 50-50. And so people think that because I speak for Rich Dad that me and Robert are best friends. I've never even met the man. That being said, I was also, apparently I was told I was their #1 selling speaker there over the course of a 3-year period of time through all the speakers that they had. I know his material. I've never met, I've never hung out with the guy. But here's what I will tell you. I want to come back to your school question for a minute.
Okay.
There's more than one way to get an education. The traditional way is to go to college, which is fine. That works for many, many people. But the way I found it is I went to seminars. And I'm not suggesting that if you don't go to college that school's not important. Remember I said I thought I hated learning when I was in high school. When I started going to seminars and finding things that I was genuinely interested in, for me, when I started going to real estate seminars, personal development seminars, things like that, man, I freaking loved it. And I would come home and I would implement what I learned. And not only was I implementing what I learned that I love, but these are things that I could actually see a direct benefit from quickly if I worked hard at it. And so to me, that was such a better experience than college because it was in alignment with what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And so to me, I would rather go spend, oh my gosh, 200 grand would go a long way in seminars and coaching and mentoring than it would going to college. But that's because of the field that I'm in. I want to run my own business. I don't want to work for somebody else. I don't want to go work for some place that requires me to have a degree. When you're running your own business, it doesn't require you to have a degree. The guy who owns Facebook, he doesn't have a degree. The Apple dude, he didn't have a degree. I've got story after story of people who didn't have a degree, but what they had is a crazy drive to learn about the field that they were interested in, and then they took massive, massive action towards it. And so, it sounds impressive to say I went and spoke for Kiyosaki, and maybe that's an impressive thing, but the fact of the matter is I was there teaching seminar-type information. I was teaching people how to run an actual real estate business that they could start right now, and they could start seeing money from it hopefully with something that they're passionate about within 60 or 90 or 120 days. And that's something I never felt like I got from college. But when I started spending money on seminars, by the way, I didn't have money to spend on seminars when I first started to go. I put my first $4,000 seminar on a credit card. I don't know that I recommend that today, but the fact of the matter is I spent that money. It was my money. I had to pay that back. I'm the one who decided that I was going to go to that seminar. And because of that, I'm the one who actually made it all work because I'm on the hook for that. But I also had a very specific recipe on things that I could do from that seminar that I could go make the money back. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, I kind of see that as like, rather than the college choosing what classes you do, you get to choose what you want to learn rather than they choose what they think you need to learn. And that's,
yes.
and that seems so much more, it just seems so much easier to figure, if you want to learn something rather than going to a college and say, this is the degree I want to do. And they give you a bunch of filler classes, I guess. You get to go in and you get to say, this is what I want to learn about. So I'm going to find these certain seminars and people that have already gone through this to learn from them. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. Just learn from people who have done these things. And it's super important. I think it's super important for me. It's helping. This is helping me choose what career I want to do rather than, it's helping me more than my school. Like because it's just hard to choose when you're just going through a bunch of math and geometry and
man.
And so
when you're 16, you haven't seen. Look. I remember when I was a kid, we would drive around, and my parents thought that anybody who was wealthy was either a doctor or a lawyer. I literally remember driving around and seeing like very wealthy neighborhoods, and I remember my mom saying, "Gosh, how many doctors and lawyers can there possibly be?" Because there were so many houses in this neighborhood that were just huge, right? And I remember thinking, well, they can't just be doctors and lawyers. And as I grow up, if you look around, look at all of the businesses around you. Somebody owns those businesses. Every Chick-fil-A, every, of course, Walmart is its own big business and stuff. But, every business you look around, every small business, every sandwich shop, every one of those things that you see when you look around, that a business owner owns that. They run it. And there's so many things that you don't even see. Like I run a very successful mastermind / coaching business that doesn't even have, there's no storefront. There's no nothing. There's not even a website for it. But people have, over the years, they come to me, they join my mastermind group. I get like-minded entrepreneurial individuals together, and these people are sharpening each other's iron over and over and over again, where we literally get together in meetings. You're probably familiar with this with what your dad does. We get together in meetings 3 times a year where we all get in a room for a couple of days, and we just help each other grow. And I get paid to do this. That's a business in and of itself. There's millions of these businesses, all different facets. They're all over the place. You don't have to go work for somebody else. And in my opinion, much of what college teaches is how to go prepare yourself to work for somebody else. Matter of fact, that's what most high schools today teach as well. And why do they teach that? Because they have teachers teaching this, and the teachers work for somebody else. They're teaching what they know. And last thing I'll say about this, to give you an idea. My wife went to a college in Kansas. She went to Kansas, KU. And now my wife has decided, since we got married and started having kids, she wants to be a stay-at-home mom. But I found this interesting. I don't know how much her father spent on her college because he did pay for it. But here's what's interesting. I asked my wife like 2 weeks ago, I said, I can't remember what was your degree in? Because she graduated, got a degree, went through the whole bit. And she goes, I don't remember. And I thought, oh my gosh, you don't remember what your degree was in? Clearly it was a worthless degree. I don't want to say it was a waste of time and money and efforts, because she had a great time. She learned a lot. But what is a school like that probably cost $20,000 a year to be a part of? Her dad paid for the whole thing, and she can't remember what her degree is in. This is my wife, and I love her to death. And I'm not teasing her, but what I am suggesting is, had she paid for that on her own, and had she decided exactly what she wanted to learn from it, it would have been a very different experience. I guarantee she would have at least remembered why she went.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about your coaching. You've done a lot of different I mean, you've done a lot of different people more than likely. But you've probably learned a lot from the people. And I wanted to ask, like, have you learned more from coaching other people or learning from other people?
Man, you got some good questions, man, especially for a 16-year-old dude. This is great. I don't know the answer to that. I think at the very best, it's been equal. Here's the deal. When you have a coach points out things that are your blind spots that you can't even see are there. So I've had coaching experiences with a coach before where I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. I didn't even realize I was doing this. I didn't know that this was my behavior over and over again. I now see how that behavior is limiting me in a huge way. I'm going to make some massive differences now and change my whole life. And I do, and it works, right? So, and that goes without saying. That's why you hire a coach, right? I've also hired business coaches that have helped me get from, point A to point B 100 times faster because I'm learning from all their mistakes, which is a great thing. However, as a coach, I get to see patterns of lots of different people, especially I coach very, very high level, high caliber, successful business owners and entrepreneurs. I coach national speakers, people with national coaching programs themselves. I coached one guy who flipped 800 houses last year, to give you an idea. And I see patterns in these people that is pretty amazing. First of all, I see that I don't care whether you flipped 800 houses last year or you're just starting this a business this year. Everybody's got their own garbage up here that they need to get past. Everybody does. Sometimes the person who has done even more business has even more mess up here than the person who hasn't done enough yet. And I get to learn from that. I get to learn what's working really well, and I get to learn what's not working so well. I see patterns between people who are killing it in business, and I see patterns of people who aren't. I see patterns of people who make a lot of money and it's gone tomorrow. And I see patterns of people who make this much, but they get to keep all of it because their expenses are very low. So, man, I would say that I have learned at least equally as much from being as a coach as I have been being coached. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions I usually ask everyone, and this is usually pertaining to just information you would have liked to have as a 16-year-old, just kind of what kind of things would you have rather had that you would rather learned as a 16-year-old that would have helped you maybe become a little bit, I can't really word this, just what would you rather have known as a 16-year-old than you knew when you were a 16-year-old? Like, what kind of advice would you have given your 16-year-old self or 17, 18, teenager self to help you kind of like get a little bit, I don't really have any other words.
Man, you got really good questions. I love these. What would I tell myself? I would tell myself, stop thinking that that's just for other people and that it's not possible for you. And I would say, here's what I mean, man. There's so many times I would see somebody else pull something off, somebody do something, and that just seemed like, well, that's only what people do who are celebrities, or that's only what people can pull off when they're on TV, or that's only what people can pull off when they were born into a family like that. And man, I have since learned that's just a bunch of crap. You at 16 can pull off anything that you want to pull off. And the only thing stopping you from doing it is your own belief in whether or not you believe you can pull it off. When I was 16, I thought that I was in a certain class and that the doctors and lawyers that my mom was talking about were in a different class. Those people are no different than me. They just took one path. That's it. And they decided that they wanted to do something a little bit differently than me, and they made it happen. I didn't believe I could do that back then. And so, I would go take one crappy job after another crappy job, figuring out all the things I didn't like. And I still recommend that to some degree today. Just go explore and go try things. But man, anything you want to do, you can freaking do it. I didn't believe that, man. So at the very least, anything you want to try, you can go try it. Some of it you might find that you're going to try and you're going to fail at, and that's okay. But go try it. Especially at 16, you don't have any bills, right? You got very little responsibility. even in the next few years. You can choose to keep your life simple. You can choose to build a life where it doesn't require you to go work 60 hours a week at some crappy job that you can't quit because you have to pay your bills. And I would keep life that simple, and I'd say go explore everything you can explore. Go learn as much as you can learn. Don't be afraid to try new things. Go try everything you can possibly try and figure it out. You'll find something that you love. It may be working with your dad. It may not be. You know, you may. I've had some of my students to me come to me over the years and say, "Hey, I'm going to get my son in the business. Will you help him?" I'm thinking of one guy that your dad knows very well. His name's Chuck. Chuck said, "I want to get my son in the business. Will you help him?" And I said, "Yes, but I want to make sure it's something he wants to do." And so I sat down and I interviewed his son. His son had no interest in the real estate business whatsoever. And so I met back up with Chuck. I'm like, "Chuck, I don't want to coach your son. He's not interested in real estate." And Chuck said, "No, he'll be interested. You just got to work with him a little bit and I'll pay for it." And I said, "Chuck, let me explain something to you." I said, "I'm going to take your money if you'll give it to me. I'm already telling you, he's not a good candidate for a coaching student. He's not going to do anything that I teach him how to do. And he's not going to enjoy the process. He doesn't want to do it. So you can pay me if you want. I'm telling you, it's a waste of money." And guess what? He paid me anyway. And guess what? His son never did it. His son wasn't interested in it. And so I said, your son has to go his own path. He has to have the guts to go explore things that he wants to do, not just do it because his dad says it's the right thing to do. He has to go figure it out on his own. And you can help him along the way, but you can't just tell him, here's what you're going to do, and I'm going to pay for it. He's got no skin in the game. He's not interested in it. It's not going to work. And guess what? It didn't work.
That's quite the opposite with what me and my dad does not force me to do anything. He doesn't force me. He takes me along with him to closings and all these things. And I've grown a lot of interest in real estate.
It's awesome.
Mainly grown interest in the freedom that he has and the freedom he's bought, basically worked for. And my only, I can't have my only mind. I gotta have a mindset of drive, kind of like the only thing that's stopping me is myself.
Yep.
And I really would like to go into the real estate business, and I'd like to start. My dad's like, me and him can start next year, basically, because I'll be in college next year, taking classes like 5 hours a week, not even doing that much. And I just really would like to start flipping houses, and that sounds like something I'd like to do. I got one last question about Life in Air. You started that business, and then you wrote the book, you and Steve Cook. What did you expect from that book? What did you expect from other people to get? How did you expect, like, sales wise, and what did you expect people to get out of that book?
It's a great question, man. First of all, Steve introduced me to these Life in Air principles, I think in 2008, I believe. I went to a little event that he put on. It wasn't even called Life in Air back then. It was called The Secret Sauce, because they didn't know what to call it. And when he shared some of the principles with me there, I was instantly attracted to it in a huge way. And I think the reason that we became partners eventually was because I went out probably more than anybody else from that first event. There was maybe 15 or 18 people there. But I went out and I implemented what he taught there like a freaking madman. And I saw some massive results within 6 months. And I got so excited by the results that I couldn't not share them with people. So I'll never forget this. It was right around Christmas. I had been implementing this for, I don't remember how many months, let's say 6 months. And I was addicted now to the massive amounts of progress that I'd had from these sets of principles. And so between Christmas and New Year's at some point, I remember thinking, I have to share this. Like, I can't, this is so in me now. I can't let this be just for me. I have to help this or use this to help other people. And so I sent out an email to my email list here in St. Louis, where I live. And this was just my wholesale buyers list. So these are people that have expressed to me over the years they were interested in buying wholesale properties, right? People I'd met at real estate investor meetings and stuff like this. I sent out an email and I said, guys, I've been going through this process. It's called Life in Air. I got to take you through it. Like, I'm gonna teach it. I'm gonna, like, just get together a couple of people in a room. Whoever shows up, great. If you don't want to show up, that's fine too. But I'm going to invite you to this. There's no charge. Just show up and I'll teach it to you. And I couldn't believe it. I had like 110 people show up to this session. It was like a one-day little class. And not only 110 people showed up, but they all registered in advance on my little whatever I sent them, maybe a little web page or something. And I remember and all this was in a week. I said, I'm thinking of doing this right now and I want to do it by next weekend. And I had 110 people show up, which is kind of unheard of for an event. So, but it was at that moment, it was like 2 days before the event, I called Steve and I go, Steve, I don't know how to tell you this, man, but I just put out an email and here's what happened. And I'm teaching a Life and Air event tomorrow and I didn't even ask you for your permission. And he laughed and he's like, hey man, he's like, I just want the message share. I said, I'll pay you. I'm not making any money on this. I just want to share the message. And he laughed. He goes, don't worry about it. He goes, go share the message and have fun. And so when I started sharing the message with other people, I started to see not all of them implemented everything that we talked about. Some of them, a percentage, implemented every single thing we talked about. Some of them implemented some of it, and some of them, I'm sure, implemented nothing, because that's the nature of human beings. But of the people who implemented it like crazy and the people who implemented some of it, I started getting stories after stories after stories of here's how my life has changed. Here's what I'm doing now. Here's how this has affected my family. And it was addicting to me. So not only was I addicted to the feeling I got on my own, but now I get to be a part of helping other people impact their lives and their families' lives and their kids and generations after generations. I became addicted to this. So when we wrote the book, that wasn't a goal that I want to make $1 million with this. It was like, I have to share this. It's like, I heard someone say one time, it's like smelling a rose and you've never smelled one. And I'm like, this smells awesome. Your nature says you got to smell this. Check it out. It's really, really cool. And so that's what this was for me. It didn't start out as let's go make millions of dollars with this. It was, let's share a really, really important message that's changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, by the way, that I can't say I could have planned. I couldn't have gone to school for that. I couldn't have picked courses to get me to that level. That came as a result of experience and going out and being unafraid to try new things. That's why I want to encourage you to go out and try some stuff. You have no idea what's right around the corner. I mean, as a 16-year-old kid, if I were you, I love what you're doing. I love that you're interviewing a wide variety of different people. I mean, I would encourage you to interview not just entrepreneurs, people that have jobs that they hate. Interview them, find out why they hate it, what decisions did they make to get there, why they can't leave. I would also find people who have jobs that they love it. They knew they wanted to do that from the very start, and they are doing it, and they love every second of it. Get as much experience as you can from people, both good and bad, so you can make your own decisions and create your own path.
Yeah.
That's what I would.
Well, thank you for doing this. This was a lot of good information. Everything you've done it's really cool. Starting from not even going to college, just building yourself up on your own. Because I don't know. Your father was in the military, so you didn't have any I guess you didn't really have a fatherly figure with a business, kind of like I do. So that seems even cooler to me that you started this all this is basically on your own and learning from seminars and stuff, and this was all your own thoughts and this is really cool.
Well, let me clarify two things before we wrap up.
Okay.
One, I'm glad you brought that up about my dad, because some people think, well, since my dad isn't, or since my family isn't what I want to be, I can't be it. Or since my dad said that I have to go this route, then I have to go that route. That's not entirely true, right? Although, my dad taught me a lot of what to do in life, and he also taught me what not to do. I mean, my dad, to give you an idea, when he was 52 years old, I'll never forget this. And when I went to work for the moving company I mentioned earlier, that was to go work with my dad at the moving company. He became a civilian and worked for a number of different jobs over the years. But his belief was, work your butt off, somebody's going to notice, and then you get a raise, because that's how the military did it, right? And so I watched him do this in his civilian life. He would go work his butt off. He would go, his last job, he was with a moving company and then another transportation company after that. And he worked his tail off. And when I say worked his tail off, I mean, there were some nights where he would sleep at the office because he could get a little bit more sleep if he didn't have the 25-minute commute to go home and then back again the next morning. He could just, work 20 hours that day and then get a quick 3-4 hours of sleep at the office and work again the next day. So I saw this, and I did not want that for my life. Matter of fact, going to work for him at the moving company was one of the best things I could have ever done in my life, Because when I went to work for the moving company, I'm here moving houses all day long, busting my butt for, back then it was like $5 an hour. And I saw guys that I was working right alongside with that were in the same job, and they'd been there for 20 years, and they were making like $1 more an hour than me. That was all I needed to hear to say, this isn't for me. Matter of fact, my father, to give you an idea, worked so hard that when he was 53 years old, he worked himself into getting cancer, and within 6 months of finding out he had cancer, he died. And so you can learn a lot from your parents. In some cases, you learn what to do. In some cases, you go, I'm never going to do it how my dad did it, or whatever. In this case, I think part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I don't want to be like my father was in that area. There's a lot of areas that I do want to be like him in. But in the work ethic area, in the die for your company kind of mindset, I don't believe in any of that crap. The Army taught him that. That doesn't mean I have to believe it. And so I chose my own path. So that's the first thing I'll say about parents. The second thing I'll say is this path that I've been on, any level of success that I've had, has very, very little to do with me. And so as a 16-year-old, what I would tell you is that this has more to do with your relationship with God than it has with anything else. And so any level of any of the success that I've seen, it is 100% contributed to God's gifting in my life. Very little of what I've actually done. So as you're on your journey, man, just continue to seek him. And when you do, he'll give you everything you need.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you have a good trip next week. My dad told me you're going to Las Vegas to do some cool things down there, shooting.
Yep, we are, man.
Okay.
You guys go on the next trip with us.
I would love to. Thank you so
much. All right, brother. Well, thank you for you had really, really good questions on here. And my family and my little kiddos just got home, so I will let you go. But thanks, man. This has been good.
See ya.